Hello, my name is Shamika, and I will be speaking with you today about the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. In 2001, President George W. Bush signed into law the No Child Left Behind Act, which was set to focus on disadvantaged children and the progress they were making in school. The law was set in place to focus on their progress and how kids learn. It also penalized schools who were not making adequate yearly progress. I'm going to show you some of the provisions that were in place for the No Child Left Behind Act. So some of the provisions that were put in place were that standardized testing. So in grades 3 through 8 and 10 through 12, kids had to take math and reading tests. And then kids have to basically make the same scores in order to be considered proficient in math, reading, and science. Some people, including many teachers, feel like that's not adequate enough to properly test how kids learn. Kids, all kids don't learn the same way. So having them take these tests over and over again is not testing how is not adequately testing how they learn. And not only that, but many of the schools were only focusing on those tests. So they're not really teaching the kids anything. All they're doing is teaching them, they're basically teaching to test. So they're not teaching them anything other than what's on these tests. And that leaves these kids at a disadvantage. So here are some things, some of the penalties that were put in place for the schools who were not meeting the progress. So if the kids weren't meeting the progress every year, then the students, here's part of it, the schools target, states must set annual targets that will lead to the goal of all students reading proficiency in reading and mathematics. For each measure of school performance, states must include absolute targets. For schools that do not meet annual adequate yearly progress for 2 consecutive years, they receive technical assistance to help them improve. If they don't, if they miss the AYP for additional years and are identified for successive status or insufficiency, corrective action and restructuring, which that some of that restructuring may include closing the schools. So that gives these schools that incentive to not only lie about test results, but to pass these kids along, even if they are not passing these classes. So you move them to the next grade, even if they're failing, which leaves these kids at a disadvantage, just so you can keep your numbers up and keep your schools open. And I'm going to show a video where that exact scenario happened. Here we go.
In 4 years, he has passed just 3 classes, earning 2.5 credits, which places him in ninth grade. But Fran says she didn't know that until February. She has 3 children and works 3 jobs. She thought her oldest son was doing well because even though he failed most of his classes, he was being promoted. His transcripts show he failed Spanish 1 and Algebra 1, but was promoted to Spanish 2 and Algebra 2. He also failed English 2, but was passed on to English 3.
I'm just assuming that if you are passing, that you have the proper things, to go to the next grade. And, the right grades, you have the right credits.
As we dig deeper into her son's records, we can see in his first 3 years at Augusta Fells, he failed 22 classes and was late or absent 272 times.
Wow. And yet they have him as a senior. And now they're telling this kid that after all of this, he has to go back to ninth grade. So this is what I was talking about. These are the incentives that the No Child Left Behind Act, these are the disadvantages that the No Child Left Behind Act put into place. So now, because of all of these penalties that they're putting on these schools only focus on how can we keep our numbers up? How can we keep our schools from closing? How can we make sure that we have enough people passing every year so that we don't have to shut down? This is a disadvantage to these students. These students are not learning anything. And I have found another article, reason this was more recent. These are some of the numbers. This says 2023 from Fox 45. 13 Baltimore City high schools. 0 students are proficient on a math exam. These kids are not learning anything. And it's really sad, and it's leaving these kids at a disadvantage because they're going to go out into the world and not know anything. What are they going to know? They're going to send these kids out into the world and they're not going to be able to support themselves because who's going to hire them with no education and no life skills? This one is saying that the 13 schools where zero students tested proficient on the 2023 state math exam. 13 schools and not one student tested proficient in math. And these are basic math skills. And these are seniors, high schoolers. So they made it all the way to high school without being proficient in math. That is sad. So there are ways for parents and for adults to get involved. This is the Maryland State Education Association. So if you want to get involved, you can visit the Maryland State Education Association and either donate to the Maryland State Education Fund, or you can sign up for emails and stay informed. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this message.